Pacific Nations Cup week number 2, folks. Japan and Canada. When was the last time we did a men's 15s match review for the Canadians? Probably the 2023 World Cup qualifying campaign. Good to see the Canadians in action. It's been a while for me. Japanese not quite so long, but the Japanese came into this one in pretty terrible form, with Eddie Jones in July having a pretty bad run of fixtures, and Canada, just in recent years, with Kingsley Jones in charge, have not been a very good team. Now, they did get walloped 55 points to 28 in this second week of Pacific Nations Cup action. Second game in the first week of Pacific Nations Cup action. But they'll at least be pleased with the second half. The Japanese came out in this first half with insane intensity, speed, and the Canadians just did not live with it for the opening period of this game. It's probably a higher pace than maybe some of these guys are used to playing with. I guess the top 14, top league, it's not called that anymore. Japan League 1. I'm all over the shop, folks. Not used to watching a game at 9 o'clock on Monday morning. But yeah, the Japan top league, League 1, is maybe a bit of higher pace than the MLR, where a lot of the Canadian guys are based. But yeah, they couldn't live with the Japanese early. Tries early on for the Japanese. But they'll be disappointed from an Eddie Jones point of view, but pleasing for the Canadians how the second half went, because the Canadians won the second half. Japan only got kind of a late intercept try at the end, as Canada was just trying to run everything to make the scoreboard even kind of 5 points more blown out. But we'll go through some of the key events and stats of the game, and you guys let us know your thoughts. As I mentioned, Japan running everything early. Just Canada didn't even touch the ball. It was just 13 carries, I think it was, including a tap from advantage, keeping it going with like no hesitation. Wanga gets held up on 2 minutes, but 3 minutes, Tuitama is able to go over for the first try of the game on debut for him. Canada, as I said, no carries, but it's 7-0 to the Japanese. Lee with the try assist. It's a phenomenal start. Dern's got the second one for Japan on 7 minutes. Bang, bang, early on. Was looking pretty bad for Canada. At this point, you're looking like, is this going to be a point-a-minute game? Are they going to get, done what Scotland did to them not too long ago, Canada? It was 14-0. Territorial pressure put on by a Canadian high tackle. So, yeah, pretty poor start. But then the game kind of slowed down. Canada got a chance after Lucas Rumble won a penalty breakdown. He's probably Canada's best player on the field again, either him or Talon McMillan. Both those guys look pretty sharp, but Rumble's always there. Wins a penalty at the breakdown, so stops the momentum of the Japanese. And then Japan, when they managed to get the turnover ball back, tried some crazy, risky, own goal line cross-field kick to try and exit, which was unlucky for Canada that they didn't kind of snaffle it. But the game got a little bit scrappy after that flying start from the Japanese. A few too many knock-ons from both sides. But Canada certainly didn't punish with their first chance. 21 minutes, we do get the third try, and it's just missed tackles from Canada. Tuitama busts the first 2 tackles, creates the space for a 2-on-1. Shimokama is able to go over the loose forward, so 21-0 Japan. Japan get a penalty a couple of minutes later to make it 24-0. The TMO did have to check the Shimokama one, by the way, but they gave it. And then from the restart, Makara in the 12 into a gap from a short ball and offloads to passes to Riley. Over. So 38-0. And I'm thinking, yep, that's a Kingsley Jones Canada side. This is going to be potentially 80 points. But then again, Rumble wins a penalty at the breakdown. Gets Canada some attacking opportunity. They kicked the touch. They got an attacking line out in Japanese territory. They lost the line out. I was kind of shaking my head at that point. This can't really get much worse for Canada. But they shut me up because on 36 minutes, they did finally manage to get a score. Some loose ball that gets hacked through. And Ko is able to finish. So at least they were on the board. The crowd was loving that. And the crowd, to be fair, BC Place is a massive stadium. It's 50,000 plus seater, which is too big for that kind of game, I guess. There was more empty seats than filled ones. It's like Eden Park in a Super Rugby game. But the crowd was vocal. The Canadian fans kept cheering for their team, even though when they were down 38-0. So 38-7 at least gives them something to cheer about. Halftime stats, there's been 5 clean breaks to 2 to Japan. Japan has thrown 122 passes to 40. I'm talking high intensity game. They've had more ball, but they've kicked less. Canada's kicked 14 times to 11, even though the on-screen stats said it was 11 each, but the ones on Rugby Pass, who's run by World Rugby, who run the tournament, I'm guessing they got it right. 14-11 is what they say. And then missed tackles, 18-3. Some of these Japanese tries come just directly through missed tackles. But the Japanese wouldn't be able to maintain like that really stingy defense for the second half. Their intensity levels certainly dropped, and the pace of the game suited Canada way more in the second half. Japan did open the second half with a try. It was Lee who ended up finishing it. It was Dearns going through a gap. Dearns and Wanga both looked pretty good. It's one thing that's been a weakness of Japanese rugby in recent years is that they don't have tall locks. Well, they've got tall locks in Dearns and Wanga at this rate. So, yeah, a couple of big locks. Dearns carries, offloads to Shimokawa. He goes close, and then Lee's able to go over from next phase. So, 45-7. But then Canada actually get a decent period of the game where they could have scored 3 tries in a row. They scored the first one through Rumble. It's again turnover ball. Canada go through some phases, pick and go. He goes over from close range, so 45-14. And then another one from a set play, McMullen, that's Talon McMullen, cuts back on an inside line, 45-21. And then they came close from a maul. Like Japan got pinged at the maul. Canada went close, they got advantage, they went again, but then they peeled off their second maul just a little bit too early, and Japan was able to kind of defensively hold them out. So I feel like that one maybe not a game changer in terms of the result, because they were still quite far down, but I don't know, they could have gotten a lot closer, Canada, if they kept on the pressure there. Then both sides kind of had some chances. No side was able to really kind of finish it off. Bit of individual brilliance from Nakabula, managed to get the Japanese another try. It was just a kind of kick. Japan shoveled it wide, really kind of reaching grab from Nakabula, good bit of individual skill, and to see some space in front of him, he's going to put the hammer down, and sure enough, he scored a try. So a bit of individual brilliance rather than the kind of team stuff we saw in the first half, 50 points to 21. And then Canada get given a wonder try through the other McMullen, Dakota McMullen, come off the bench. Canada with advantage, put a kick through, and then it's just a bobbling ball. He just managed to kind of slap it down to the ground. And it's a weird one because the TMO and the ref didn't seem to be getting along that well. The ref doubted both of the TMO calls that they were kind of given in this game. And the TMO's like, yep, you can award the try, go with your on-field decision. I can see it grounding. The ref's just like, let me just see that again. Like, there'd been foul play earlier in the game, and the ref was... No, not foul play. It was the Warner Dearns one. He thought it was potentially offside. The TMO called him up, and the ref was like, nah, I'm not having it. So both the times the ref spoke to the TMO, he was very doubtful about what the TMO was on about. So it ends up giving... They see a grounding, so 50 points to 28. Can Japan score one more? They do. Can Canada get one last consolation try? No, they can't. Trying to force it from their own half. Osada is able to pick off a Peter Nelson pass. So it does finish 55 points to 28, but way better from Canada in the second half. Japan, great first half. They didn't play anything like that in the second half. Remember the missed tackle stats at halftime was 18-3. By full time, it was 29-16. So Canada still missed way too many tackles. They missed 11 in the second half, but Japan missed 13 in the second half compared to 3 in the first. So a big, big time turnaround. Clean breaks finish 8-5, so Japan a lot more limited. Remember, they had 5 by halftime, so a lot less, or a bit less in the second half. Turnovers conceded 18 by Canada, 14 by Japan, so a little bit loose. Japan conceded 12 penalties to 8. That's a few too many for Eddie Jones's boys. And like individuals, Rumble, 3 turnovers, 1, 20 tackles, and a try. That guy is immense. Costly for Japan. Similar effort, 3 turnovers, 1, 17 tackles for him. In the loose, Yazaki had 9 defenders beaten. Talon McMullen had 5 defenders beaten. Warner Dearns was everywhere with those passes and whatnot. But yeah, interesting game. As I mentioned, I haven't seen a lot of Canadian rugby in recent years. Canadian fans haven't seen that much of Canadian rugby, to be fair, with how many games they get on their fixtures. This is not that many. They played Romania and Scotland and whatnot recently, but Pacific Nations Cup, they are back in some regular action to a degree, which is at least something pleasing. They are in action next week as we see them take on the States in America. Japan will sit for a week because it's Tonga and Samoa playing on the other side of the pool. Fiji and Japan will kind of sit for week 2, and then we'll kind of get back in action for them in the 3rd round. So, yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts on the game. Subscribe to the channel if you want more Canadian rugby chat, apparently, and Japanese, because I'll be covering the rest of the Pacific Nations Cup as the competition goes on. You guys take care of yourselves, and talk to you guys again soon.